Hi, I'm Mina Shamali. I make music and I talk about music, and this here is my studio space. I'm about to have a play with Soundiron's sample library, Sonispheres 3, so come on in. Now, that is not a bad sound at all. It's absolutely lovely, and it's been quite enjoyable exploring this library. So, what is Sonispheres? The Sonisphere series is a collaboration between Soundiron and composer Blake Ewing. Now, I'm a fan of Blake Ewing's work. I've enjoyed his music on many occasions. And I'm a big fan of Soundiron because their instruments form a sizable part of my sample library. So I'm always really excited to see what they're cooking up in their lab. So Soundiron have sent me a copy of Sonispheres 3 to check out, and I'm coming into it brand new, absolutely fresh. I haven't played anything else in the Sonisphere series, Sonispheres 1 Distance or Sonispheres 2 Origins. I just jumped straight into Sonispheres 3 Current. And in Blake Ewing's description on the product page, he speaks about music and storytelling, how hearing certain timbres and frequencies together triggers something in most of humanity, a place, a time, a memory, an emotion, a sense of urgency and hope. And he speaks about how these beliefs and these experiences affect him as a person and inspire him as an artist. And he says, "My hope is that you as a musician will use these sounds as the hazy, ethereal, ambiguous base on which to bring into sharp focus your own artistic visions." And he ends it by saying, "I truly hope there's something here for everyone." So I, being part of everyone, have gone about exploring this library and writing a piece of music with it. And two things I find. One, when you have a sample library or virtual instrument that bears an artist's signature, what you're getting is that artist's aesthetic, sound aesthetic or musical aesthetic, and it's almost like a collaboration with that artist. They've made the sounds, you make the music. You just funnel it through your own musical perspective and come out with something fresh and brand new. And I find that really exciting. The other thing I found about this library is that it feels like having a conversation with the instruments, because these instruments have so much movement within them, or some of these sounds have a lot of movement inherently, that it becomes a matter of listening to what they're doing, responding to it, and then hearing how they respond to your response and so on. And it becomes this beautiful give and take. And I find this kind of stuff really exciting. So let me show you this piece that I've written. The core part of it is the piano. And it's a piano developed from two layers. One is called the transatlantic, and one is called the oceanic piano. So I've created a bit of a blend, and you'll see there's no effect turned on. These effects are actually off, the delay and the reverb. And this is kind of what it sounds like. I'll solo the piano, and this is what it sounds like. So you're hearing a lot of movement, delays and reverses and echoes and reverbs all interacting in these interesting ways. I'll just play one note so you can hear that movement. And if I play a higher note, there are these reverbs and reverses and echoes that are interacting, and each of them come from one part of the sound. So if I mute one of the layers and play that note again, there's delays and reverses together. And if I mute that layer and put the other one back up, it's all about delays and reverbs. And you put them together and blend them with the crossfade, and you can really create something. And that's all inherently in the movement. So what you find is that you are responding to what the piano is telling you to do, and then you tell it what to do, and it becomes this. You can let it speak and respond to you. So that is pretty cool, and there's a bunch of other instruments with movements in here. What I've created underneath the piano is this synthesizer layer. I've used one of the bass synth sounds and applied a little bit of low-pass filter to create kind of this warm, low-end padding underneath. And this is what that sounds like on its own. And that's got a bit of delay happening to add a little more movement. And if I layer that with the piano, this is what it sounds like. So you can really very subtly thicken up some of your arrangements using instruments like this. Now the next part I'd like to show you is this pulse that I've created using, again, a mixture of bass synth sounds with some filters and a bit of the offset control that I really enjoyed. Because what you'll find is that these sounds, some of them are one shot, they're finite, they're not just looping. So what you end up accessing is different parts of their evolution. And some of these sounds evolve in very different ways. So when you turn the offset up, you can access a different part of the sample. And that's really interesting to bring variation into a part that you're writing. So using the arpeggiator on the front interface, which I love, when you can access these effects and filters and arpeggiators, they're all part of the Kontakt scripting, but you bring them up on the interface at the front. It's just easy for me to go in without having to faff about under the hood. So 3 layers, one on each side, and a bass to create a bit of movement underneath. And you'll hear there's a bit of delay, some transient master applied, a bit of tape saturation. It's all part of the mixing process. And these instruments have a lot of great detail in them to be able to apply different effects for different kinds of results. And I really enjoy that. And if you put that underneath the piano and the synth layer, that's what it sounds like. So some very subtle movements to be able to add a little bit of energy without overtaking the arrangement. Now, the next part I want to show you is more movement, but these arpeggiators or arpeggios, that I've programmed individually. I sometimes like to take control of each note. Sometimes I like to let the arpeggiator do its thing, but sometimes I say, you know what? I want it to do these specific sequences. And again, I've made use of the offset and the filter to add some variation to this repeating part. So have a listen to this part in the second chorus section, I guess. And what the filters, have a look at the filter and have a look at the offsets and what they're doing. So the offset kind of creates that variation as the sound kind of fades out. And what you may have noticed is that there was an error when I had the effects rack. I've come across this in my installation. I've spoken to the Soundiron people about it. They say no one else has come across it. But what I've found is that if you get this error in the effects rack, you just click that little exclamation mark on the top right hand of contact and it just resets things without issue. So one final part I want to show you is this WAV file right here, this audio file. This comes from the library, and the beautiful thing is that Sonispheres gives you the WAV files of all the samples that are included in it, which means you can work with them in your DAW outside of Kontakt. So I found this sound under the shallows category. And let's turn it down a little bit. This is what that sounds like. There it is. So this is a vocal performance recorded, then time stretched in a way that creates these choppy artifacts. And you can also hear that there's some inherent reverb within the sound. So I figured, what if I dragged it in and manipulated it in terms of pitch and time to fit into my arrangement, and then added a little bit of reverb to kind of wash it out with not as much dry signal, added some delay using Guitar Rig with some psych delay, and for some extra movement, a stereo tremolo kind of effect with a slow rate to kind of have the sound move around you. I wanted to add that little bit more movement. And this is what that sounded like over here. And in the context of the arrangement, it sounds something like this. And with that, you've got the arrangement of this song that is entirely made out of Sonispheres 3. As I said, working with this library is really about having a conversation with some of these instruments. Some of them are a little less talkative, and they just respond to what you're playing pretty much how you'd expect. But then sometimes having that conversation can open up some really interesting, creative things. And that's part of working with a sample library that encapsulates an artist's aesthetic. So I really enjoyed working with it, and I can definitely find a lot of places to use this kind of library in my work, whether it's for picture or for video games, or even contemporary productions in different genres of music, because there's always those elements, those ambiguous elements. I love ambiguity in how you create some of these sounds, because it adds that layer of mystery and interest that can really grab someone by the ear and say, hey, you don't know what I am, but you're going to listen to me and you're going to like it. And I quite enjoy that. So I'm going to end this video by playing out the whole arrangement. I'll just focus in on the piano so you can see most of what's going on with the melodies and the arrangements. And if you enjoy this kind of thing, I do more of it. And I encourage you to maybe drop a like, drop a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you can keep updated, and ring the bell to be notified whenever I put up a new video. So this is the piece, and I'll catch you on the next one.